What's up, guys? Noor here, and welcome to Book of Showtime Chapter 50, guys. We finally made it. I'm so happy to be doing this episode. It's going to be a good one. As always, if you have a topic you'd like me to cover, be sure to leave it in the comment section down below, or anywhere you can reach me on social media, or the Book of Showtime Discord, which, guys, if we can get the Discord to 25 members, you know, there might be some prizes given out. So make sure to join the Discord, share the links with your friends, all that jazz, and we're at chapter 50, guys. So first off, I just want to thank you all for watching. You know, we just wrapped up our first full year of Book of Showtime. So, you know, round of applause for all of us. Yes, us, you know, for making this happen. I wouldn't be doing this without your support. While due to setbacks with my health, you know, I've been sick for basically over a year now, and then YouTube removing my channels and me having to take a hiatus while it got resolved, I'm not exactly where I want to be in terms of how many chapters we have. You know, 50 was my goal this year, but I wish we hit 50 back in September or October, but I'm glad where we're at. We got to 30 subs. Now, you know, next year, let's get to 60. So as with last year, I'll be taking a break, though it's a little later in the year than I wanted, as due to the aforementioned setbacks, I was behind and I wanted to get to 50 before the year is up. Like I told one of my friends, I'm both ahead and behind schedule. All the setbacks have cost me in the neighborhood of around 10 videos, but I feel like because of support from you guys, I did a ton more chapters than expected, so being able to end the year at 50 feels good. I've been wanting to take a break since the end of October, so this is a long time coming. Last year I took a break, but that was because I was building up this channel, getting it ready, and now I just want to take a nice break to rest up, relax, you know, and just also make sure everything's ready for next year. There's a lot of chapters I actually wanted to do in place of chapter 49, which was why it wasn't out when it was out. But that was the most time-sensitive topic out of all, with the Game Awards on the horizon. But don't worry, most of these concepts I do keep around so that just in case, you know, I feel like revisiting something or the timing lines up, I'll be ready. Also, we received this feedback on chapter 49, and when discussing in the Discord server, everyone seemed to think it was a good idea. So going forward, the chapter number won't be in the video's title, it'll just be Book of Showtime for main chapters, and the supplements will still be the supplements, though I'll keep a number on that. At the beginning of each video, I'll still announce which chapter it is, as there is a minute amount of continuity on this channel. I know you guys are looking forward to next year's chapter, so here's a sneak peek at some of the upcoming videos I have planned. These are all subject to change in terms of when they'll come out, as even though I'll be on break, I'll still accept and lay the groundwork for suggestions you guys give me, as your suggestions always are my priority. I don't know exactly when I'll be back, but just know that I'll keep you guys informed in the server. I think my first chapter back will maybe be the second week of January. We'll see how things are after the new year. So I asked you guys a while back to give me general questions for Q&A stuff, and you guys delivered in a pretty big way, so we got a lot of questions. Let's begin with Vinny. She always contributes big time to the channel. So Vinny asks, what was the idea or inspiration behind the book theme to the channel? The book theme was something I've always had in my mind from back when I was doing Twitch streams. I would talk about myself as like a godlike figure at times, and I was going to have these rules for like being cocky and showboating. You know, that would have been the Book of Showtime. But now that I don't stream, you know, the name was just kind of floating around in my head all this time, all these years. But we finally have a use for it. Next, do you have an end in mind, or is this a project you plan to do for as long as you're feeling it? I'm going to do Book of Showtime until I decide to end it, you know, barring some outside factors. As of right now, it's something I hope to do for a couple of years, at least 100 chapters for sure. We'll get to 100 chapters and then we'll look around and see where we are. Moving on, what does your editing process look like? Do you watch or listen to anything while editing, or are you 100% focused in on your work, no distractions? So the way that I put together a chapter for Book of Showtime can be broken down into a few bullet points: receiving the idea, evaluating the idea, researching the idea, scripting, filming and recording VO, and then finally putting everything together. First, the idea or concept is obviously the most important part of the chapter, that goes without saying, but my method of how I go about it kind of ties into evaluating the idea. If it's a topic or question that someone gives me, you know, that takes priority over the original ideas that I've brainstormed on my own. Now, part of the evaluation is also deciding if the concept is worth its own chapter or will be relegated to a subchapter, because there are plenty of ideas that I can talk about or I have an opinion on, but my arguments, passion, and knowledge for the topic might be low. Plus, I'm always going to try to honor any request I receive. Remember back in Subchapter 2, we discussed the barbershop questions, sports teams from the past versus sports teams of now, things of that nature. My brother Weaver has asked me quite a few of those questions, and most of those questions can be answered very easily, so devoting an entire chapter or even an entire section to what I feel is always going to be a unanimous decision in picking the modern team or player over the throwback team, those questions are Subchapter questions. Next, it's research and gathering information. When it comes down to it, Book of Showtime is usually just my opinion and nothing more. Most of the research involved is just fact-checking myself before I start working on the script, so when I show stats or dates on screen, it's not nonsense. I also try to find more useful information, whether it be fun facts or just more solid data to back up my argument. Like, remember when we talked about Jeff Hardy's legacy back in Chapter 8? I had to make sure I had his total number of days as champion accurate. Next, the script, which ties into her fourth question: do you write out full scripts for chapters or just rough outlines? You've gotten very natural with your commentary. First off, thank you. I think I've always been told I've had a really good voice and have been a very good speaker. That hides the fact that I'm actually an atrocious speller. My command of the English language when it comes to spelling is horrible. But I digress. Originally, Book of Showtime was just going to be raw, unscripted takes or opinions, but I tend to wander and ramble too much, and you see a little bit of that when I do my tier maker videos. I won't always go line for line, but the script helps in keeping my mind kind of anchored when I'm doing these things, and it also keeps the commentary less bloated, which in turn keeps the video shorter too. Afterwards, time for filming and recording. For sub-chapters or variety chapters like this one, I'll just film whatever I'm playing at the time. But in cases of the Konami triple header or anything wrestling related for main chapters, I'll be sure to capture a game that ties to the topic. What I started doing back in October was downloading trailers, but sometimes that can be tough the further back something is. Back in October, we did the October Select miniseries, and most of the games I covered were available on modern machines, meaning that the trailer quality was higher. But in cases of games like the original Devil May Cry, the trailers were pretty yucky. But using trailers saves a lot of time on production, and no one seems to mind either. Plus, I try to have it so that you really don't need to be looking at the screen when you watch a video. I know my brother, the legendary Weaver, he listens to these videos while he gets ready for work, or my friend and the prettiest southern belle I know, Amy, watches while she works on her tremendous art. So the quality of the trailers never really bugged me too much. For voiceover, I used to use a Shure MV5 mic, but that got messed up, so I switched back to my old Blue Yeti mic, and basically what I do is I load up OBS and I record over a black background, sometimes with the gold border that you always see. I do this in OBS Studio, and then I load the video into Windows Movie Maker. Yes, you heard that right. I still use Windows Movie Maker, and I edit the voiceover track to be used later in Final Cut, and I keep it as an MP4 because it makes putting the border around the trailers much easier. Finally, I put everything together using Final Cut on my Mac, I watch it over, and then upload it to YouTube, and bam, welcome to Book of Showtime. As for my workflow, I tend to put chapters together over a 3-day span. I try to do all the PC stuff on Monday, like the VO, the recording, all the gathering, then all the Final Cut stuff on Tuesday, so that the chapter can go up on Wednesday, but this also depends on the chapter itself. Obviously, longer ones might require more time. As for watching or listening while editing, I listen to music at certain points during the editing process, but when I'm typing out scripts or listening to VO, obviously I need to lock in, because as I'm doing a script, I tend to read it out loud, so trying to do that while listening to music would be too much. But when I'm just adding transitions or some of the text that appears, I can just listen to my big Spotify playlist or watch videos in the background, whatever. Vinny then goes on to ask, are there any types of new content or format you'd like to experiment with or introduce to the channel, or is this plan to stay focused and steadfast on the structure your videos have now? Since I started Book of Showtime over a year ago, I wanted to do interviews, just to help people grow when it comes to content creation. Like Vinny, for example, she has an ongoing webcomic, and I can potentially interview her on that. In addition, there's a sub-series I've been thinking about starting next year called What If, and in this sub-series I take a look at movies or games and come up with theories about how the narrative would go if one or two little things happen differently. The pilot subject will be Pulp Fiction, as I feel that movie has a ton of little things that completely change the story, and I mentioned before, I'm a huge Quentin Tarantino fan. I've seen almost all of his movies multiple times, so if that series does happen, expect Pulp Fiction, Inglourious Basterds, Hateful Eight, things like that right off rip. And I know back in the anniversary chapter, I said there's next to zero chance I'd ever return to Twitch, but the prospect of doing Book of Showtime Twitch streams or streaming on any platform, Facebook, YouTube, wherever I feel I'm comfortable at, not really just for gaming, but for kind of live on the spot takes, interviews, tier maker videos, things of that nature, kind of like a satellite radio show. They do intrigue me, but there's about 200 factors that are stopping me from doing that. I need some new equipment to start, and then just the mental aspect of getting ready to do that. As you know, the lack of success I had with streaming in the past makes me even hesitate to entertain the idea. It makes me hesitate to even talk about the idea out loud, but I'm more open to, you know, wishful thinking at this point. Those are just, you know, some things that are always on my mind on how to grow, how to expand as a creator for like the Book of Showtime brand. And I don't want to do too much now as I'm still small and it's the work-life balance I'd like to have. Next question, what are some of your biggest inspirations as a content creator? You know, it's funny because my friend Tara also asked something similar. Back in the anniversary chapter, I mentioned Maximilian, Ray William Johnson, and Eddie Murphy as my inspirations, but I also get plenty of inspiration from, you know, my friends whenever they just support me. It just drives me to do more, which is why I always work faster when I get a request as opposed to working on original concepts. My favorite notification in the world is when I see that YouTube studio icon on my phone. I just get so happy. So guys, keep hitting that like button, keep sharing, and, you know, just keep giving me suggestions. Next question, are there any big creators on YouTube you'd like to collaborate with? I actually don't really keep up with many big content creators anymore, especially since I started doing it back in 2015. Like, there's a few I'll always check out, like Chris Move and Barry M on YouTube, and I'll tune into the occasional Maximilian stream, but as far as working together, you know, it would be awesome to just chill on streaming. Game with a guy like Maximilian would really help me grow. But, you know, doing stuff with my friends, that's big enough for me. I always take that stuff very seriously when my friends ask for help. Vinny then asked, if you can write or direct your own video game, what would the basic premise and gameplay be? Vinny, I actually do have a concept in my brain that I always think about, but I'm a little embarrassed to talk about it on the air. So one day we can sit and talk about it in private, but I definitely do. My brain's always working. And finally, she asked, what movie would you personally like to write or direct a sequel or remake of if given a chance? They teased a Rainbow Six movie at the end of Without Remorse, and with how good the Rainbow Six Siege lore has gotten, I'd love to delve into that universe and bring some of those characters to life. That style of action, you know, counter-terrorism, close quarters fighting, that would be awesome to be a part of. But just to direct period, that would be a blast. The one thing that sort of sucked when I was making live action skits for my Twitch channel is that it was hard to be the star and the director at the same time. So one day I'd like to produce something where I can just firmly be behind the camera. Also, for some strange reason, don't ask me why, if they ever did a live action Outlast movie, I would love to star in the whistleblower component of the story. I would like to play Wayland Park. I know he never speaks. I know you never see him or know much about him, besides he has a wife and kid. It's just something that I strangely always saw myself doing. Like, if they did that movie, I could do Wayland Park. I don't know why. So Amy Starlight asked, what is your favorite piece of content you've ever created or been a part of? This was a good question. Heck, it's a great one, actually. And, you know, I'll start with the second half of the question. My favorite content I've ever been a part of was easily ATWE. ATWE was a series of Twitch streams my good friend Ben did where he'd stream the recent WWE 2K games, and what he would do is have the created wrestlers of the chat go head to head. So if you came to the chat and you say, hey, can you make me, he'll make you. And he had a bunch of wrestlers like that, and they all went head to head in the game's universe mode, which is like you just let the AI kind of fight. #1 contenders, all that stuff can be set up. It was awesome. It was a blast. Ben worked extremely hard at it. He did live commentary. It was completely unscripted. He created belts and logo designs, and Ben himself might actually be the greatest creator wrestler guy out there. He can make you into a wrestler in such an uncanny amount of time. He does a great job, and he did such a great job with ATWE. He built a solid community while being limited to streaming off of his PS4, mind you. So he didn't have all the transitions and all the other stuff that you can do with PC. He just had what his PS4 gave him, which I thought was extremely impressive. The dynamic element of ATWE is what made it really good, and while I always felt roleplay on the internet was a little out there, I really enjoyed portraying a heel and getting into that type of character. In fact, the reason I'm Showtime Boyd on most places is because of ATWE. My full ring name was Showtime Nor Boyd, but because the WWE games couldn't say Nor, and I didn't want to settle for Noah, I simply just went by Showtime Boyd, and now I just use that name on almost every service. I miss ATWE a ton, so Ben, if you're watching, I know you sort of moved away from it, but I'll always be there ASAP if you ever do an ATWE stream. As for creative, that's tough. The first thing that comes to mind is the anniversary chapter we did back in August because of how it came together. You know, I was incredibly sick and MIA from social media for like 2 weeks. And when I came back, we had to like rush into getting a chapter ready, and you guys really seriously came through for me. So I really can't thank you guys enough for that. That was really awesome. I did a lot of great streaming as stretches too. I think that Summer Gauntlet 2018 is where my peak was as a streamer. I played a ton of great games. There was some iconic moments in my Twitch career. So I think that Twitch event was the best I've ever done. And for those who don't know, Summer Gauntlet was something that I would do every year that I was on Twitch, you know, starting in 2016. I would basically curate a list of games I've never played before and just play through all of them, you know, and commit to playing through all of them. It was a really fun thing to do. The one thing, though, I think that is really special to me is when I cosplayed my friend Venicia's character, Jackie November, from her webcomic. That was really fun, and Vinny was so happy. I wish I had the screenshots of her reaction, but that was something I've always wanted to do for years. Like, since I've known her, I've wanted to do that, and finally pulling it off was awesome. Also, Vinny, Amy, Zorky, if you guys are watching, I know you guys have that channel somewhere in the Discord where I think it was one of the old self promos, so if you guys can get Vinny's reaction and then maybe post it in the Book of Showtime Discord, that would be pretty cool. My friend Zorky, who never plays games with me anymore, what's up with that, Zach? He asked, what is your favorite part about creating content? My mantra, like my day-to-day goal for me, is to make at least one person smile or laugh. And as someone with a lot of natural comedic chops and showmanship, just trying to entertain others, that's a big deal to me, because you never know what someone else is going through. If they're having a bad day, a smile or a quick laugh, that can change that. My friends, especially ones with pink hair, are going to get mad at this statement, but I feel like I really have no real talents or skills, but you know, my drive to put a smile on someone's face, even when I'm feeling down myself, that's what makes me happy about making content, and knowing that I'm making something people will enjoy, whether it's one person watching my video or a million people watching my videos. That is what fuels my passion for Book of Showtime. Just kind of putting stuff out there that people can enjoy, doing something that people can enjoy. That's what just, you know, that's kind of what just being me is about, being Norboy is about. I love making people smile. So my cousin James asked me a few questions, and let's go through them one by one. He first asked, what's your gaming and editing setup look like? So I already talked about my editing, but as for gaming, I have basically 3 monitors. My Mac on my right, my PC monitor in the middle, and my gaming monitor on the left. And I run my HDMI through an Elgato 60 Pro capture card, which is an internal capture card, and I listen through the capture on my PC so that I can be in call with friends, watch videos on the side, or even record clips. It's a little annoying sometimes because the PC needs to be on for the output to display off the capture card, but in some cases, if I really want to focus, and this is how you know I really want to play a game. Like when I played Alan Wake 2 earlier this year, I'll just disconnect the HDMI from the capture card and plug it right into the monitor. So no computer, no distractions, no nothing. Also, on my Mac, I have tons of tabs open with information on games, wikis, baseball reference, stuff like that. So I'm like the information guy when people need it. Next, he says, what are your top 10 game picks for the year? For game of the year, you know, all that stuff, we'll get to that in the future chapter, as the year isn't up and there's still a few games I think I might be able to play. Third, he asked, what games do you recommend gifting for the holiday season? Of course, I have to recommend the aforementioned Alan Wake 2 and Resident Evil 4. Both amazing, amazing games, but if you want to put somebody onto something different, I also recommend the Yakuza series, and namely Yakuza Kiwami. It's a great game, great series, quickly became one of my all-time favorite series. And another great gift might actually be some Fortnite V-Bucks, hint hint. You know, this is actually a great time to get into Fortnite with all the new modes they just added. It's new season, you know, it's awesome. And guys, if you get anything on the Fortnite shop, use supporter code THEGIRO. I got it on screen right now. Next, what does your video game collection look like and consist of, consoles included? I have the following machines: an Xbox 360, an Xbox Series X, a PS5, a PS3, a Wii U, a GameCube, a Switch, a Nintendo 64, a Dreamcast, an Nvidia Shield, an Ouya. Go ahead and laugh at that one. I will defend the Ouya. I don't know why I'm doing it, but I would. I got a 2DS. I think I still have a PS2 somewhere as well. And oh yeah, and a PS Mini, the PlayStation Mini. I have that as well. As for actual games and what it consists of, I'm not going to count all the digital games I have. That's well over 900 at this point, but physically I have in the neighborhood of 250 games across all eras and genres. Just, you know, eyeballing my shelves and doing a quick count. I love owning games physically, but obviously with the big shift to digital, this might not be a luxury I get anymore. Now, as for the type of games I play, you know, I'll play everything. My main games obviously are FPS games and survival horror, but you know, I'll try anything. The two genres though that I'll always steer clear of are long turn-based JRPGs and MMOs. I will not look to play games like that. James then goes on to say, what is your gaming history first console to present? We've always had games in my household growing up. You know, my older brothers had like things like Genesis, N64, PlayStation 1, so there's always been games in my house, but the first console that I remember that was mine and mine alone was the Nintendo GameCube. My dad, he got me the Super Smash Bros. Melee bundle from Sears, and we also got Boston Market that night too, which, first off, when was the last time anybody's going to Sears? Like, the Sears still exists, and I haven't had Boston Market in like 3 years. They got some good food. This was all for the Eid of Ramadan, if I recall correctly. I also got Star Fox Assault that night as well. Underrated game, by the way. What sucked is that I didn't have a memory card for a while. I forgot to get one, and I had to go like a month and change without a memory card. Since then, I've had various machines, and now primarily I just prefer to game on my Series X. I just like the Xbox controllers, like the UI, all that stuff. All my games, a lot of my history is on the Xbox platform, so I just prefer to do everything there if I could. Next, what titles do you feel deserve a reboot? So I won't get too much into that, as we got some things regarding that concept in the pipeline, but I can always find time to talk about Time Splitters. And I'm not just saying that because I'm a huge Time Splitters fan. You know, my cousin James and I, you know, and I spent a lot of time growing up with James, you know, we were practically brothers at this point. And one summer in particular, we played an absurd amount of Time Splitters 2, namely the Flame Tag mode. I think I was in 7th grade or going into 8th grade. The Flame Tag mode, the virus mode, you know, when one person was just on fire and you had to pass it on, and the person who spent the least amount of time on fire won, we'd load in with a ton of bots and then find a good place to camp, and we just did that for hours, all night. It was a blast. We'd also break night every time we got around each other. We would be up to 8 a.m. no matter what, and it's crazy to think about that, because I feel like most days I can't even make it to like 6 p.m. without a nap. What titles do you feel need a general port? I would love to see Grand Theft Auto Vice City Stories get a port. It's the only 3D era Grand Theft Auto I haven't played, and I really want to try it out. I'm upset it never got an anniversary edition like the others. You know, they all got the 10-year ports to mobile, and knowing how bad the definitive edition was received, I doubt we're going to get a stories version on that concept, which sucks. But, you know, I just love that style of open world game. Just too many games these days are way too open. They're devoid of life, time sinks. It's terrible. I prefer the tighter, more contained, streamlined style of sandbox games. Finally, he asks, what are your thoughts on Grand Theft Auto 6? The trailer, you know, for Grand Theft Auto 6, it really doesn't do anything for me. Grand Theft Auto is kind of in that class of game where I know I'm going to buy it, most likely day one. I just pray Grand Theft Auto 6 is more like Grand Theft Auto 5 in terms of gameplay, as opposed to Red Dead Redemption 2, which was so slow at the start. And I also hated all the little things you had to keep track of, like the cores. I respect the technical aspect of Red Dead Redemption 2, but I honestly have no real desire to ever play it. Even if they added zombies like they did for the original Red Dead Redemption, I still would have balked. I would like to see a more grounded and mature story as well, you know, closer to Grand Theft Auto 4 in terms of tone, but still over the top and silly enough that it's a GTA game. For online, I would really enjoy it if the protagonist had a voice. That's really all I want. I was never a fan of any game where the most important person in the narrative doesn't speak. They did it in Metro, it didn't make sense there, and it doesn't make sense in GTA Online. I'm sorry. But James, I will cover Grand Theft Auto 6 a little bit more in the future. I do have a lot more to talk about in terms of what I want to see, so a Grand Theft Auto 6 wishlist is definitely something that is in the pipes. So my oldest brother Dennis, he asked me a few questions, and some of these we've covered already throughout the course of this chapter, so I'm just going to skip those and go right to the ones that we haven't. He first asked, which episode was your favorite to create? The anniversary, of course, but we talked about the anniversary a ton. I actually really like working on these sub-chapters, just those variety videos where we cover a lot of topics. I think that those are really fun, and I think that sub-chapter 4 might be my favorite sub-chapter. I just had a ton of fun doing the voiceover for some reason. I also really enjoyed doing the October Selects mini-series, which I think a lot of you guys enjoyed watching the October Selects mini-series. That was fun to do. Next, he asked, would it be possible for you to do a live episode? Again, streaming is a very real possibility in the future. Very, very unlikely, but, you know, still something could happen. If there's enough demand, that's also something that could sway me, but time will tell. Next he says, not really a question, more of a request for an episode about the NWO. So I actually have an idea for where I can chat about the NWO. I actually got requested to do a wrestling video last week, and I think that I can bring the NWO into that wrestling video. But as far as an entire chapter, no. I have a deep and sincere hatred for Hulk Hogan. I really cannot stand him, and I hate Kevin Nash too. They're both jerks. Scott Hall's cool though, Rip the bad guy. And like James, he asked, what are your thoughts on the GTA 6 trailer? Again, it did nothing for me, but as I do this video, I remember that GTA 5's first trailer, that did nothing for me as well. It was the character trailers that came afterwards that really sold me on the game, and the online mode trailer. That lock solid was like, okay, I gotta get this game as soon as possible. Finally, he says, congratulations on getting to chapter 50. Thank you very much. You know, it's funny, when my oldest brother comes to visit, you know, last time he came, or couple times he's come to visit, he's asked me about Book of Showtime, or he's talked to me about Book of Showtime, which is cool that someone, you know, in real life comes up to me and talks to me about something that I do on the internet. I just think that's really cool. So if you see me in the street, say, hey, I like Book of Showtime. All right, guys, thank you so much for watching this video. I know it's really long. I'm looking at the VO right now. It's a long chapter, but if you've watched it all the way through the end, it means a ton to me. You know, your guys' support this past year and change has been really fun. So I can't thank you guys enough for just, you know, letting me do something fun on YouTube. Like, I feel like in the past with YouTube, I've always kind of done whatever, you know, highlights of stuff, nothing like this, nothing focused, not an actual series. So thank you guys so much for all the support, all the feedback. It really means a lot to me. Let me know down below what your favorite Book of Showtime chapter is, what you want to see from Book of Showtime in 2024, and inshallah, I'll see you in the next chapter.